Good evening, everybody. I hope you're doing well. And as always, as we start these off, if you could just let me know in the chat if you can hear me and you can see me and everything is looking and sounding as it should do. Once we've done that, then we'll sort of go through and say hello to some of the usual faces and some of the new faces, which is always great to see. So thank you very much, Carl. Great to hear that everything is sounding and looking good. Okay. Thank you, Andrew. You're a star. And thank you very much, Michael. So let's just start off by saying an absolutely huge welcome to 2021. Let's just hope that this year isn't such a S show as 2020 is. So fingers crossed we have a better year in 2021 moving forward. I hope you're all safe, you're all well, and you enjoyed your holiday and your break. I know for me, I absolutely loved every minute of having some time off. It was absolutely fantastic. So that's been really cool. So I'm just going to say hello to a few peeps that are in tonight. So good to see you in, David Walls. Always good to see you. And we've got Ted Olson. Again, great to see you as well. Steve Pro, always good to see you in from Gloucester. And we've got my man Andrew's in. Michael Wright's in. Andrew McKim's in. H2, the U2, the G2, the H. That's an awesome username. I like that one. That's cool. Evening, Carl. Always good to have my right-hand man in. Always good to see you here. I know you're all doing well. Who else we have? Lillian, good to see you in as well. Els, you are absolutely right. This will be the first live where we don't talk about will I be covering oxygen. Because if you haven't seen already, I've covered oxygen in, I think it's 3 videos, and a 4th one will be going up tomorrow afternoon. So I'm covering oxygen, and I'm sure there's going to be at least 1 or 2 people that'll be happy with that fact. So yeah, been good. Spenny, good to see you in as well. And we've got, what else we have? Wouter van Meren, always good to see you in as well. Who else do we have in tonight? I think that's it so far. Let's scroll down a little bit. Edward, good to see you. Carlos G, Mario, Ola, Regendra, Quasi, I hope they said that right. Doran, hope I said that right as well. Stratos, good to see you in tonight. Now, speaking of Stratos, I've got to say this because he asked me the other day if I give his channel a shout out. So he covers oxygen and does some oxygen tutorials. So please do check out Stratos Tutorials. Just do a search on YouTube, and I'm sure Carl will find that in a moment and pop the link up so I can share that. But check out Stratos' tutorials on oxygen. There's some awesome content there, so have a little look at that. Share the love, and obviously subscribe if you enjoy the content that he's putting out. It's always good to have more creators on various different kinds of page builders and content, and just sharing the skills and the knowledge. It's absolutely awesome. So please do that. And don't forget, if you haven't already joined the WP crew, the link is by there, which is wptuts.co.uk/Facebook. Join up, become part of the WP crew, and get involved in the conversations and the discussions that we have on there. So, Rich, good to see you in tonight as well. Yanis, always good to see you in as well from Greece. Bobby Palmer from Cleethorpes, good to see you in as well. Luke Blizzard, good evening, good afternoon. What else do we have? Theo, good to see you. Imran, also good to see you in as well. So it's absolutely fantastic to see some usual thing, some new ones as well. In from Italy, awesome. Victoria Grayson, good evening to you as well. Okay, so this first one back is going to be pretty relaxed, as they pretty much always are. But before I start, I do have to say that if you're coming, you're expecting me to be drinking beer tonight, I'm afraid I'm going to have to disappoint you because I'm actually on the wagon, as it were. So I'm on the water tonight. So please do bear with me. Lost the stream. Is everybody else losing the stream, or is everybody else okay? Let me know in the chat. But as it is, I will be on the water for the foreseeable future. So I do apologise. But please do feel free to have a drink for me tonight. Okay. Good evening from Morocco, Mr. Daz Hardware. Okay. Lost it. Stream buffering for anyone else. Oh, having a bit of a problem. Hopefully we'll be back soon. Just refresh, seems fine now. Okay, if anybody else having a problem, please do refresh the stream and see if that sorts the problem out. Please do let me know. Pete Winter, lockdown is bad enough without beer. Yeah, you're probably right, but you gotta try. Okay. Osvaldo from Brazil, thank you very much for joining in, and thank you very much for joining the channel. Okay, so what do I want to cover today? Well, if you saw the title of this, it's basically the tools don't matter. So let me just pull up what I'm talking about. Okay, so the tools don't matter. What exactly do I actually mean by the tools don't matter? There's so much emphasis placed on the tools that people are using, like Elementor, like Oxygen, like WordPress, like Webflow, like a million other different things, that I think, for me, 2021 is placing less emphasis on those things and more emphasis on the end result and getting the right end result. So this is kind of what I want to talk about in today's sort of live stream. I want to find out what tools you use and why you use those and you don't look at alternatives if you are kind of just using the one sort of page builder or the one tool or something like that. Because I think there's such a massive stigma attached to relying on tools, specific tools, and not looking at other options, and I think we can very quickly become blinkered. I've talked about this in past live streams. I think as designers, as whatever you kind of want to call yourself, designer, web developer, whatever term you feel happiest wearing, we don't want to sort of just get stuck into that rut of I only use WordPress with Elementor and this one theme, and then nothing else comes close and nothing else matters, and no matter what the client wants, I will make sure that those tools will make it, will create it for them. And we could be making bad choices by being so blinkered, by only looking at the one solution. And I think this has kind of come to light a little bit more for me, especially towards the end of 2020 into the beginning of 21, how people are jumping ship from one page builder to another, from one platform like WordPress to Webflow, and the reasoning behind why they're doing it, and then obviously the learning curve that kind of goes with it. So I just want to have a conversation tonight about how you feel about it. I know what I kind of think, but I'd like to get your feelings on this, your thoughts on it. If you are very much down the route of this is my tool set and this is all I'm going to use, as in WordPress and a particular page builder, for example, or Gutenberg or something like that, or whether you are a little bit more broad and you think, well, I know 5 or 6 different tools, and I'll look at the project that I'm working on and I'll see which tools I think are the right one for that particular project. So that's kind of what I mean by the tools don't matter. They shouldn't matter. They are tools. At the end of the day, you wouldn't use a hammer to try to take a screw out, and you wouldn't use a screwdriver to take a nail out. Well, generally you probably wouldn't. So choosing the right tools for the right job is just as important as knowing the tools. So what are your thoughts? What tools do you use? You tell me in the comments, and let's get this conversation started. And while you're thinking and typing those things up and giving me your opinions and your feedback and so on, I'm going to see who else has popped in, say a couple more hellos while we get this conversation started. Okay, so Dirk, good to see you. Always great to see you in tonight. Andrew McKim, love the 5 tips. Permaslug. Okay, don't know what that is. Sorry for being late again. Dirk, you're okay. You're no problem at all. We've only just got started, so don't worry too much about that. And Happy New Year and a better 2021 to you as too, my good man. Okay, let's have a little look. You were often the first to comment on my video, Stratos. I appreciate it. Okay, sorry, I don't know where this is going. I think this is a bit of a conversation behind the scenes. Okay. I am blank tape. I stick with Divi because the licensing the plan I pick up with Webflow in 2021. Is that one of the reasons why so many people kind of stick with a particular tool, is because of the licensing, because of, like Divi has 2 options. You've got the lifetime deal, or you've got the recurring model where you pay every single year. Pretty much the same as Elementor does there with the annual licensing. Whereas a tool like Oxygen is currently lifetime deal if you want it, but they are moving over that when they bring out, I think it's 3.7, there's going to be some new features that unless you're an early adopter, as in you've purchased your license like a lifetime prior to that launch, then you'll have to pay for some of the new things that they're going to be bringing out. So what dictates what you use, as in what you learn, the tools that you look to invest in your time in? Is it financial? Is it time-based? Is it you just think that the tools that you have do everything you need so you don't need to look outside it? And if that is the case, do you kind of think that maybe you're missing out on other tools that may be better than the tool set you're using, but because you're not looking, you don't know what's out there? So you could be saving yourself time. making yourself more profitable, making your life just a little bit easier. There's so many different reasons why other tools could be better for a given job. So like I say, let me know what it is really drives your reasoning behind the tools that you use and your approach to this the tools don't matter kind of debate. Anyway, like I say, let's go and take a little look. Okay. Okay, so we use the tools because we don't know PHP coding. I don't think you need to know PHP coding, the same as I don't think you need to know CSS and you don't need to know HTML. They're advantageous should you know them, because then it means that when you hit limitations that all page builders have, and they're various different limitations, then maybe they're not such a limiting factor to a project you're working on because you have extra skills. And I think this is where the plugin market is so prevalent, is because it fills those gaps in people's knowledge, giving them the tools to do a particular job that they might have previously had to learn how to code to get that same result. And I think that's probably one of the curses of a tool like WordPress, is that you can very quickly become so reliant upon a bunch of plugins to do what is basically really fundamental things that you end up with a site that you're scared to update because one plugin that has a conflict with something else and your site falls over. And that's frustrating when it's your site, but when it's a client site that's paying you money, that's time is money, So I don't know. I think we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to our future clients and probably our existing clients to spread our wings a little bit wider and take a look at some of the other things that are out there in the web design landscape. And that's something I want to talk about a little later in this for the channel and for me, and the direction in which some of the things we're going to be covering over the next 12 months moving forward, where that's going to go. And I'm sure you've got an idea of it with the fact that I'm now covering Oxygen in a little bit more detail, as well as looking at Gutenberg. Anyway, so that's my kind of thoughts with things. Okay, let's have a little look. Joe, you leaned into Crock-a-Block might move into Oxygen territory. That would be combined best of two worlds for me. Now it feels I have to choose. I can only say what was intimated to me in a brief conversation that I had with one of the higher ups in Crock-a-Block just before, I think it was, or just after I released the video that says about Jet Engine is actually working with Oxygen, even though there's probably limitations on what you can do with it. And it was, like I say, intimated to me that Oxygen was something they're going to be looking at to improve that integration further down the line. And I think personally that would probably be a smart move, because if you look at Crock-a-Block over the last, say, 6 months, 12 months, they have made a concerted effort to move into supporting Gutenberg in more detail. And I think this is right. I think this is the right way to go, because limiting it to just Elementor, you are then building your entire business around one platform that if they decided to change something, your entire business model could then fail. And that's a scary prospect for any business. You don't want to go down that route. So I think if Crock-a-Block do look at integrating into Oxygen, and maybe even look at other options later on down the line, like Brizzy, like Beaver Builder, like Divi, those kinds of things. I think it would be a smart move, as long as they don't dilute their efforts to create and support the products that they currently have. That's the fine line that a business like Crock-a-Block would have to sort of tread, should we say. So it will be exciting to see if they do support it more, and I know for me, I will be doing a lot more coverage on that if it happens in the future. So I'm kind of excited to see where that goes. So we'll have to see. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Okay. Let's have a little look. What else do we have? I can't say that they're making us dumb. I think they are making us lazier. I think that's the easiest way to look at it. If you come in with no knowledge, which I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that are doing exactly that, coming in with no coding knowledge, no nothing, because tools like Elementor and Divi and Brizzy and those kinds of tools, they do make building a site so much easier. It's great that designers, as opposed to coders, can create great looking sites. They can design something, But before, they would have had to learn how to then convert that design into something that would be a website or would resemble a website. And there were some clunky tools out there that just made that whole scenario quite painful. But I think with the advent of tools like Elementor, and I say Elementor because Elementor was probably one of the earlier ones that kept the speed with the ease of building, and they did sort of open up that pathway to people that weren't coders but they were good designers. So I think in that respect, it's been good. But like I say, yes, there's going to be that sort of one half is going to be people that come from a coding background with understandings, even if it's just minimal understanding of HTML, CSS, PHP, JavaScript, any or all of those different kind of options. And then there's going to be the other side, which is more to do with people that just come from a design background and want to be able to convert their designs into a visually pleasing, relatively quick loading website. And like I say, tools like Elementor have and do continue to make that a much more viable option for those kinds of people. Okay, before I continue any further, I do want to say a big thank you to today's sponsor. And if you watched the last live stream or the one before that, I've been really lucky to get a couple of sponsors on board for these live streams. And I'm keeping it to only 2 at any given time. And there's only ever going to be a quick segment for any of the sponsors, and there'll only be 1 per episode. So today's sponsor is dynamic content for Elementor. And while the live stream is going on, and for an hour or 2 after the live stream, stream even, if I can get the words out, there's a promo going on, which is a 10% discount, and you can just use the promo code LOCKDOWNLIVE when you go over if you want to grab yourself that, or you're renewing a license or whatever. So a big thank you to Dynamic Content for Elementor, to Giovanni for being the first person on board to sponsor these live streams. So a big thank you very much. And if anybody knows, they know that Dynamic Content for Elementor is one of those plugins that gets a lot of attention on the WP Crew Facebook group and also on the YouTube channel. And there are some more videos coming out very, very soon covering some of the new features that are included. So that being said, thank you very much Dynamic Content for Elementor, and thank you very much Giovanni. And like I say, if you want to grab that 10% discount, just use the code LOCKDOWNLIVE when you purchase it. Okay, so those are the bills paid. What else do we have? Let's have a little look. Wouter, I'm using Oxygen for the customers with more budget or where speed really matters. This is something that I've seen a couple of times now where people have mentioned that if people have got bigger budgets, they'll use a tool like Oxygen. So I'd be interested to find out, Wouter, if you wouldn't mind sort of replying below. What gives you the feeling that you can charge more for Oxygen-based websites versus something like, Elementor or Divi or any of those kinds of ones? I'm just curious to sort of see, because from my experimentation, I don't find Oxygen, for the most part, any slower to work with to create very similar sites to what you can do with a tool like Elementor. So I'm just curious where the mindset is kind of coming from, that Oxygen you'll charge more for versus something like Elementor, for example, that you might charge a lesser fee for. Just curious to find out. So if you wouldn't mind popping sort of a reply to that in the comments or the chat section, that would be absolutely fantastic. So let's have a little drink. And what else do we have? Okay, there's how I look. Elementor plus Croco plus another related. Steve, Oxygen soon. Yeah, I mean, you can't help but notice that there's been a lot of comments lately about jumping ship from Elementor and going over to Oxygen, primarily for speed, for the fact that there's been the issues that we saw late last year with Elementor 3 being released and those kinds of things. So there are a lot of people jumping ship, and that's nothing to do with the reason why I'm taking a look at Oxygen on the channel. There's just been so many people have asked me to take a look at Oxygen and create some content that I did spend some time over the holiday period to go and take a little look at it. And I quite enjoyed the difference that I can see in it from where I tested it in version 2, I believe it was, to version 3, and it just gives you so many more options. And as I mentioned, I think on the Facebook group, I know I mentioned it in the live chats before, in the live streams before, I like the fact that those core features that you need, like conditional logic, things like that, it's all built in. I don't need to have another plugin installed to do something that is kind of fundamental when it comes to working with dynamic content. You're going to have empty fields in design, so you need to have some way of managing that and not just having an empty placeholder left there, which, you know, it's totally unprofessional. And I know there's some great little free tools out there that are available for Elementor, but as I've said in the past, these are things that should have been built in version 2 when they brought in dynamic content as being a real core part, especially when you can use that inside templates where you don't know if some of the data is going to be filled out on a given sort of setup, and therefore you need to have some way of managing those conditionals. So like I say, I like the fact that those things are built into Oxygen from the get-go, forgetting all about the speed side of things. Another question that I got asked with regards to Oxygen and Elementor is, would I be doing some kind of video where I'll do a comparison? And the answer to that was yes, I will do. Once I get a bit more familiar and get a few other things under my belt with it, I will create a design that's very, very similar between the two, as close as I can possibly get it with those tools, and we'll do a side-by-side comparison on exactly the same server setups and everything else. So yes, that is something that I will bring to the channel at some point this year, probably in the first quarter of this year. Okay, so Andrew, I used Brizzy Cloud for a simple barber client. Great option for simple sites. LTD from AppSumo, well worth it. Again, this is kind of reiterating my point. You were using that to do something that's a really simple, you know, landing page, one-page website, maybe even like a couple of pages. And that was a great option for that because the hosting's included. The SSL, I believe, is included. The builder's all set up there. Everything is self-contained, and for a project like that, you could probably put that together in, I don't know, let's just say half a day if you've got all the content and everything you need. And that's the job done. And the client might not have, you know, £1,000 budget to create something that simple. So I think that's the right kind of tool for that kind of job. Would you use it for a more complicated site? Probably not. You know, you'd look at something like Elementor or, you know, or something like that. So I'm a great advocate in saying, don't just pigeonhole yourself into just one set of tools and never look beyond it, because you could just be doing yourself and your clients a bit of a disservice. Dirk, let's have a little look what you say, my man. I'm an Astra Elementor guy all the way, but I'm leaning towards trying Gutenberg and Blocksy with the usual stuff like Crocoblock or ACF. I've come to the conclusion Gutenberg is here to stay. You and probably everybody else that uses WordPress right now, whether we like it or not, it's kind of, like you say, it's here to stay. I will be honest, if you add a couple of free plugins into Gutenberg, you can make it a lot more usable. Out of the box, I think it's okay if you want to do a very simple blog post and that's all you want to do with it. But when you want to use it to create something a little bit more eye-catching, a little bit more interesting, then I think you really do... You need to have some of the extra tools to make it a viable option. And again, then, you know, again, the comment sort of brought up, well, when you start adding these extra plugins into it, are you not then just getting into the territory of using a page builder? You know, you're loading all these extra assets in and more CSS files and JavaScript files and all those kinds of things. So ultimately, you're going to potentially slow your site down. And without testing, I can only say that's pretty much probably a bang-on conclusion with it. You know, the more things you add in, the more plugins, then you just get closer to that issue you have with page builders and a ton of plugins. But if you're using a good theme, and if you didn't see my video that I released yesterday, which is all to do with the Blocksy theme, where I used that to create a blog and we use Gutenberg to just create the blog content, that's a very fast theme with a header and footer builder, so you can use that to create your templates and then hook that into Gutenberg. And if you're using the pro version of Blocksy, that gives you some extra things like hooks, which is super easy. So you can easily then just do some design work inside Blocksy, design your headers and your footers and your stickies and your, you know, all those transparent things and stuff like that. Then you can set up the hooks to put into the templates that you want to add extra things into, and then finally you could use Gutenberg to create the actual content. I think a combination like that would be a pretty swift site that you have a ton of options inside the theme, and Gutenberg is probably more than enough to create something that's more than usable, and you should be getting really good results with page loading times. I know where I tested Blocksy out, it was surprisingly good. You know, with no optimization of some of the template files, you were getting around 1 second load time with no CDN, no nothing at all. This was just a plain vanilla install and just chucking in some of their templates. So I think with a bit of tweaking, you could easily get that down for a typical page with a few graphics and things and maybe some animations and stuff. You could get that to sub 1 second load time, and that's pretty good. So I would say if you haven't tried out Blocksy and you are looking for something to pair up with Gutenberg or with another page builder where you have headers and footers and a lot of control, then I would recommend checking out Blocksy, because I've been super impressed with it, what I've been testing it out over the last couple of days. And I've got some more content planned to release very soon, covering some of the core things that I think make Blocksy such a awesome free theme. And like I say, if you want to go another pro version, then you've got even more options, but it's a pretty good theme, fair play. Okay, Spenny, I'm quite new to all this and focus on WordPress, Elementor, WooCommerce and Crocoblock for dynamic content. That's a big enough learning curve for me as a newbie. As a newbie, you'd be right. You know, master those tools, master what you're trying to achieve. And then once you're comfortable with those and you know enough to be dangerous, then take a look at some of the other options that are out there. If you want to stick inside the WordPress ecosystem, as much as it pains me to say it, you really would benefit from just at least taking a look at Gutenberg and some of the plugins that you can use to make that usable. You know, just some little enhancements from the admin side of things, not the front end side of things. Then you've got 2 eggs in your basket. For the projects that require something like Elementor or WooCommerce or ACF, you've got those tools there. For something that's a little bit lighter weight, maybe a little bit quicker, you know, a simple 5-page site for a local business or a blog or something like that, then maybe using something like Blocksy, for example, alongside Gutenberg and a couple of little add-ons to make the dashboard a little bit more usable, you could have a really solid platform there for building a site that's going to be fast loading and easy to maintain and update. You know, never underestimate. Just take a look at what other tools there when you're comfortable with the ones that you're kind of starting off with. Just keep broadening those horizons. Okay. So we've got a lot of comments, and I'm going to quickly flick past some of these because I want to go on to the next part of tonight's topic, which is basically what we've kind of been talking about so far, which is to broaden your horizons, to don't restrict yourself to only learning that one tool. And what I kind of mean by that is, while you're used to working with WordPress, there are other options out there that will give you more control. It'll give you a better platform for certain things. Now, we've talked about Webflow in the past, and I don't really use Webflow that much myself. I've dabbled with it. I will be taking a look at it in a little bit more detail in 2021. But for now, I think if you've got a client where you just want to hand the site off to them and you don't want to have to deal with maintenance and hosting and updates and security and all of that kind of stuff, then I think a platform like Webflow is a great opportunity. The other platform that I think is really, really useful and worth looking in, and we just talked about it, is using Brizzy Cloud. Because one of the things you can do in Brizzy Cloud is you can create a site using Brizzy Cloud, which you can then host somewhere else, and there's a synergistic link between the two of those. So while the site becomes a standalone HTML type site on your server, you can link it back to the Brizzy Cloud account where that site was built, and you can make updates on there, and then you can push those over to the live site on your server. There's like that link between the two. That's one of those things that I think is really, really cool, because then you get the benefits of a static site, but with the added benefit of a page builder, but they're kind of separated, so you don't have to worry about updates going on the cloud server having any effect upon your live site, because they are basically independent of each other unless you make a change on the one and you push that over to the live site. So there's options out there. Would I use that for a big complicated site? No, absolutely not. I mean, Brizzy Cloud is not really geared to that. But for smaller sites, for local businesses, for SMEs, for sites that just don't require a lot of maintenance afterwards, the last thing you want to do is tie yourself into an ecosystem like WordPress that forces you into keeping things updated by looking at those things. So if you use a tool like, let's just give a scenario now, and this is not to bash on something like Elementor, but it's a good example of what I'm talking about that's happened fairly recently. It's probably fresh in our minds. Let's go back to 5.5's, I think it's 5.5 or 5.6 release, and Elementor 3.0. That was one of those things that if you were building sites for clients and you had live sites and you updated that even after the initial 3.0 release came out, until we got to about 3.7, 3.8, people were still experiencing big issues. Lots of people lost a lot of money in their businesses because they were spending a lot of time putting out fires, basically, with the setup that they'd used. This is something that, if you've got a site that once you had that payment of the client, all they want to do is every 12 months or every month, whatever you set it up as, pay you for the hosting, maybe pay you for the SSL, the security, maybe even pay you for the domain. You don't want to be spending time, taking time out of your day, updating, putting out fires when things inevitably go wrong. That's the last thing you want to do. So this is where I think a platform like WordPress would be the wrong solution for a smaller site that doesn't really warrant your attention, because the client just doesn't want that to happen. So think about these things, and this is why I say it's so important to look at the alternatives that are out there to find the right platform to do the job for the client and just save you time, effort, and money. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Okay, we've got our first thumbs down for the live stream tonight, so that's awesome. I always love it when I get a thumbs down. Feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Okay, let's have a little look. What else do we have? Let's go back and just sort of go over this in a bit more detail. Graham, any plans on using Oxygen with clients? If I had a client that had a job that I thought Oxygen was a better platform for, and I become more accustomed to it, because at the moment I'm just literally dabbling, taking over the things that I know from platforms like Elementor, seeing how they work in Oxygen, and just generally, finding my feet with it. So right now I would say no, but that's because my lack of knowledge would mean that I wouldn't feel comfortable knowing could I fulfill the client's requirements with that tool set right now. As my knowledge sort of expands and I cover more complex content and tutorials on the channel, then yes, I would definitely say that if it's the right tool for the job, I'd have no hesitation using it. So yeah, I don't see any problem with using that at all. Again, right tool for the right job. So hopefully that answers your question, Graham. Okay, and I'll go back to see if I can find... Sorry, I've got to pull this one up. Oh, is this a New Year's resolution? No more beer. Not a New Year's resolution, Dirk. It's more a case of lockdown's taken its toll, so I think it's time to cut back on sugar and beer and stuff for the foreseeable future, so I can get back to where I was before, weight-wise and health-wise. So, yeah. At the moment, water is going to be the main ingredient. Okay, let's have a look. Let's have a little look at who to come back to me with a reply to that. So just bear with me. I'm just going to quickly flick through the lots and lots and lots of comments that we have on here tonight. Okay, I can't find that one in a minute, so I'll come back to that a little later when we sort of have a little chat afterwards. Okay, so now we've kind of covered that. Let me go on to point number 3. And that is, don't be a snob. There could be a negative tribal snobbery online, and this is something that I've seen and experienced in quite a few different Facebook groups. Thankfully, we don't really have much of it going on in the WPTuts Facebook group, which is always a good thing. I like the fact that's a nice, friendly, and supportive location for people like ourselves, people that are working, designing content and building websites and so on. But I have noticed, and I'm sure many of you have, and if you have, let me know in the chat, that people get very defensive about the tools that they've invested their money into. You'll see it if someone asks a question or disses something about Elementor, for example. You'll have a pile of people will jump on in defense of it, and you'll have some people who come back with their experiences, and then there'll be this verbal back and forth. Sometimes it's polite, sometimes it's a little less than polite. I've seen the same thing in the Oxygen group. I've seen the same in various other groups as well. And I kind of just think that's a little bit, I don't know, going back to that tunnel vision thing where you become blinkered. There's like, while you've invested money and time into a tool, I think to become sort of negative towards other people's opinions, even sometimes I've seen people get abusive with it, that really concerns me in the fact that how you can be a snob, and this might come across as being a little bit detrimental to things like page builders and things like that, but how you can be a snob about the tool that you use that makes your life easier and means that you don't necessarily have to learn how to do the hard miles, coding, learning how to build all those things, because the page builder does so much of that for you with a couple of clicks of a mouse. That just strikes me as being just a little bit too snobbish and a little bit too elitist. You are taking tools that someone else has built. You don't take credit for the car you drive just because you drive it. If you drive, let's say, a Ferrari and you've got someone there that's driving a little Fiat Punto or something, at the end of the day, you didn't build those cars. You didn't have anything to do with them. All you did was hand over your cash, get in, and do the simple job of driving. And the same kind of thing goes when it comes to page builders and themes and all those kinds of different things. If you were the developer, the designer, then you have the reason to become a little bit sort of take should we say, a soapbox look down at people. Whereas when all you're doing is using the tool, don't be a douchebag about it. Be open to other people's opinions. If you disagree with it politely. But it's an opinion at the end of the day. If it's different to yours, move on. Get on with the rest of your day. Don't let it bother you. So I just don't like the whole snobbery that kind of goes around some of the tools that we see. And I know it's not limited just to WordPress or Elementor or Oxygen or Divi or Brizzy or any of those things. It's just get over yourself. I think that's what I'm trying to say. So don't be a snob about it. It's just like, I think, let me just say a little look. Okay, I think that's a completely different topic now, so I think that's going on to a different thing. But yeah, this is kind of what I wanted to say. It's just, if you are using tools that someone else has created and you don't agree with someone else's opinion, or someone rants about something to do with that tool, be helpful and just move on. Or if it's something that you think you feel strongly about, just let it go straight to the top of your head. So that's that. Okay, so I have no idea what this is all about. So Lewis Oxygen versus Adam. Okay, I don't know where that's coming from, but I'm assuming this is kind of in relation to when Adam from WP Crafter first took a look at Oxygen, and I don't think he was very complimentary about that particular tool. I could be wrong. If I'm right on that one, Andrew, please do let me know if that's what you're talking about. But look, everyone's got their opinion. Adam maybe didn't like the way that Oxygen was working, the way it looked. I know for me, when I did some content, I worked with Lewis, version 2, I think it was, of Oxygen, did some content, some sponsored content. I struggled with it. I found it quite difficult to get my head around. I really did not enjoy creating that content. I thought the results were great, but I found working with it felt like it had a really steep learning curve. So when I came back and took a look at Oxygen version 3, let's say 3.6, which I think is the current version. So there's been quite a few iterations in there, and the number of people sort of saying how good it is for various different reasons. It was interesting to go back and take a look with my previous preconceived ideas, or my previous experience in the back of my head, and see how much better it is. I still don't like the interface. I still think it's clunky looking. It works fine, but it's clunky looking. But from a feature point of view and from a usability point of view, it's grown exponentially since I looked at it. I want to say 2.5, maybe 3 years ago was the last time I kind of looked at it, until recently. But yeah, to go back to that, I mean, if Adam didn't like it, that's fine. We can't all like the same things, I don't personally see where the hype is around the Cadence theme. I mean, I've tried it out and it's perfectly fine, but I didn't get all excited and warm and fuzzy about it. For me, I found Bloxy to be better, but that's my personal opinion. Would I argue the toss with someone else's opinion on it? No, because I think the day's too short to worry about it, Anyway, that's my opinion. Okay. Excuse me. I have no idea. There's quite a few different different things going on, different comments going on inside here. Okay, so let's just do the last point that I want to cover tonight, and then we can have a little bit of a freeform chat about what I've covered. So, what I'm doing and the future of 2021 and beyond on the channel. So this is just a brief kind of overview of what I want to do, what I want to cover, how I want to change tack a little bit on what we do on the channel. Up until now, I primarily focused solely on Elementor and Crockablock and Jet Engine and ACF and all those kinds of things. And those topics are not going to go away at all. If anything, there will be more Crockablock content. But as I've kind of said, and what this sort of came about with today, is I don't want to be stuck with just that set of tools. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. They are phenomenal tools. But there are lots and lots of other phenomenal tools out there. This is why Oxygen is now being covered with more detail. This is why I'll be looking in a little bit more detail at tools like Brizzy Cloud and how we can use those. Because I want to help anybody that's interested to be able to grow a more successful business in 2021, and looking at the tools that are out there. And if I can do the legwork to show you something that I think is useful, and at the end of the day, I will only be showing things that I personally think are useful and worth the time to take a look at. I've always been of the mindset that if I don't think it's a good product, service, or I don't think it fits into what I want to talk about, I don't cover it. This is why you don't see me bad-mouthing plugins, why you don't see me bad-mouthing themes, or anything else that goes with it, because I just think if it's not for me, what's the point of me covering it and just giving you a bad impression of it? Because it could be perfect for you, but for me it was the wrong thing. So there won't be bad content on the channel, as in like you don't be disrespecting anything like that. I just don't see the point in it. Life's too short. But I do want to cover more things. I just seen WP Bakery on there. No, WP Bakery will not be one of them. I can tell you that for a fact. So 2021 we'll be covering broader bases when it comes to web design. We will still be doing WordPress and stuff like that, but I'll also be taking a look at things like Webflow. We'll be taking a look, maybe even Pinegrow. There are lots of options out there that give you more tools and facilities that could be better for a given situation. So that's what I want to sort of talk about today. I just want to sort of let you know that's where the channel is going to be going in 2021. And as always, if you've got software, plugins, services, SaaS services and things like that, or just things you've come across that you think that would be pretty cool, let me know about them on the Facebook group, because so many of the pieces of content that I've come across have been because someone has commented or asked a question about a particular product or something like that on the Facebook group, on Twitter, even in the comment sections of the different videos that I put out there. And it's great because I can't sort of find all the different things that are out there that I think would be interesting. And I found so many different ones that you've let me know about. So I don't want that to change. If anything, I'd like it to be more so in 2021. So if you come across anything you think is awesome, just drop it into the Facebook group if you're not already a member. If you are a member, create a post and drop it in there, because I really like to see what kind of things are out there. Uncanny Automators, whatever, because I thought that's such an awesome little tool. And I've come across quite a few of the developers that I've talked to, and it's been really, really interesting to speak to the developers, to find out where they're going with things, and just get an insight into what their vision is with their particular plugins, themes, tools, whatever it is. So that's pretty cool. We'll hit the thumb down again. Volker, what can I say? They obviously didn't hit the thumbs down twice, did they? Which is the way they're supposed to be doing it. Philistines, that's all I'm going to say. Philistines. Okay. Exactly so. The thumbs down must always be clicked twice. It's the golden rule. Okay, so let me just have a little look at some of your comments. And like I say, as with everything we're doing tonight, please do let me know your feedback on anything that I've said. Okay. Let's have a little look. Dirk, I think the hype by certain people in the Cadence team is mainly affiliate related. Just my humble opinion. I don't know. It could be. I honestly have no idea. Again, it's one of those things that you all know. I don't make I don't hide the fact that I have affiliate accounts with tons and tons and tons of different themes and plugins and God knows what's. But what I'd hope comes across in anything that I put out there is that I don't ever tell you whether something is good or bad. I just put out there what I can do, and if you think it's something you're interested in and you happen to want to use my affiliate link, happy days. But if you don't, it's no drama. And I think that's that for me, that's always been my preferred method of showing what kind of things are out there, is to let you make your own minds up. And I hope, like I say, that comes across, and you know, that's the reason behind it. But I certainly wouldn't just show you a product or a theme or a plugin or a service or something that I didn't think had use and I hadn't tested myself. I might ask questions like the AppSumo things, where I'll ask, has someone bought this particular SaaS or plugin or theme or whatever, and see what the kind of feedback is. And then there's been times where there's been a lot of interest in that, and I've gone and bought it myself and then put a tutorial together on it. You know, I combined various different ones together to create maybe a sideline business, like we did with the landing pages and the, what was it? The quoting software. We took a look at doing that, a little sideline hustle. And I like those kinds of things. So if you liked that type of content, let me know, because I'd like to create more like that again in the future, where we can combine maybe lifetime deals together to build either a sideline business, a little sideline hustle to bring in some extra money, or maybe to augment the business you currently have. You know, building landing pages and all those kinds of things can easily go alongside building websites for clients. I kind of found that interesting to see how you could combine those things together to create something that could ultimately make money. So that was pretty cool. So like I say, let me know if you'd like to see more like that in 2021, and I'll see what tools I think you could combine together to create more revenue streams for your business, because more revenue streams means more money, which means there's less stress that goes into 2021 with everything that's going on in this world. Okay, so let's have a little look. First beer open, Steve. All right, there's no need to rub it in. I'll just drink my water, shall I? Zapier is genius. Yeah, Zapier is quite a useful thing. I don't really use Zapier that much. Actually, I don't use Zapier at all. But I like the concept of it. I just didn't like the price. Now, I know there's another sort of like a related service that does very similar to what Zapier does, which was cheaper. So that was something that was worth looking at. Okay, so now we've covered the points that I wanted to cover. I can now press my little bumper button because I just like this and I always forget to do it. So we're going to have a little bit of a Q&A session. I'm sorry, I got to give a mileage out of that. I always forget that every single time we do a live stream. So I just wanted to do that tonight. Okay, let's have a little look. What do we have? I've got to take this thing off. I've got to remember which one I'm pressing. Hello, what's been the most complex site you've had to build, and what builder did you use? Most complex site I've had to build. That would probably be an accommodation-based listing website that I had to build for where my business used to be based. That's big on tourism, and the tourist organization, which is called it's an association where all the different sort of providers can kind of get together, pay a membership, and every year they sort of release a little booklet of all the different places you can stay and information about the area. And they wanted to have a website built that was sort of like an online version of the brochure that I produced for them. The first version of that, I think I used some third-party WordPress plugin thing that was fine, but you know, as I've said in many videos and live streams before, the problem with that is you always have to try to fit into what that particular plugin or theme with extra features does, and it isn't always what you want. So when I was learning more about like Jet Engine and things like that, when I had to rebuild the site, I actually used those tools to build it. And there's quite a lot of things going on there, because they've got, you know, all different listings which have to be editable from the back end for the admin of the site. There's searches on there, there's different sections, there's just tons of stuff on there going on. That was probably the most complex site that I built, and I believe, off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure that was ACF. At the time I didn't have anything for like the filtering and stuff, so it ended up being Jet Engine, I believe, or I think it was Jet Engine, because I didn't have some of the other tools. They weren't out at the time. And Elemental for that. And I think I used Ocean WP for the theme. But going back now, I would probably do it very differently, knowing a lot more about how these things are built, knowing more about how I can customize everything. I can do front-end forms, back-end forms, custom logins, custom dashboards and stuff like that. I would probably do it very, very differently now. If the client came back and asked me to do a version 3 of the site, I would probably go back and start with something that would give them more control and less reliance upon me for lots of the different things. So that's probably the most complex one I've done in the last couple of years. Prior to that, where I had my own CMS, I worked on a project which I was kind of like, I had a developer, excuse me, a designer, web designer, whatever, outsourced the project to me for, it's like a dance school. And that was the one project that caused me so much stress and grief that I vowed after that I would never, ever work with a middle person on a project, because when you've got a middle person, you've got them liaising with the client. The client asks them, can they do something? And they go, sure we can. And then they come to you and go, can you do that? And you're like, crap, how the hell am I going to do that? And it was just one of those things that was, I learned so many lessons from doing that on how not to work on a project. And I would say if you're ever in the position where you have the opportunity to work with someone that's a middle person, whether that's someone that's a web designer that's just outsourcing, or someone that's like an agency or something, I would say look very carefully at what you're getting yourself into, because I did a couple of projects and that was probably the biggest one, and it was just a constant form of stress and hassle, and I absolutely hated the entire project. So yeah, I would never do that again, ever. Just not worth it. Dirk, I have nothing against affiliate links so long as it's not too obvious. Again, like I say, I think you have the right attitude there. I think most people don't care about affiliate links as long as you're not being sold something just to make the affiliate dollars. Yeah, it's just, I think, what can I say? I've always been of the mindset with this channel, and I hope, again, it comes across that there's more. I want my reputation to be more important than a quick buck. It's the same concept as I've had in business. I would rather turn something down, turn a project down, turn an affiliate deal down, turn sponsor content down, that I don't think is any good, than take the money and run, as it were. So, yeah, I think as long as you're open up front, as long as you're honest about it, and as long as you're not pushing something that you don't have any belief in whatsoever just to make those affiliate dollars, then you are 100% bang on. Like I said, I'm not saying anybody else does that. I have no idea on anybody else's motives or anything else when it comes to YouTube or any other channels. I can only speak for myself and my own experience. Okay, let's have a little look. Iconic expressions. How long do you think before page builders are phased out or not used as much as Gutenberg for full site editing? Good question. I think this is one of those things that's very much like, a theme's dead, or when a theme's going to die. Are people still using themes and stuff? Well, there's still a market there and people want to create something. I mean, Gutenberg is fine. The full site editing experience that they're kind of putting out there is basic. And if you think how long it's taken for Gutenberg to get to where it is, and it's still not something that I think lots of people would actually want to use, you have to question how long is it going to take them to get to the point where that becomes a very usable platform, alongside then adding in full site editing. I would be quite surprised if it didn't take them at least the next 5 years to get to a position where that's become a usable platform for building a site with WordPress. And then you have to ask yourself, will other platforms come along that'll take over from what WordPress is doing? Everything has a life cycle, and this is something I'll be covering in another live stream, but everything has a life cycle. So I would say probably at least the next 5 years before that becomes something that could potentially be taking away from page builders as we know them right now. But as we know with everything when it comes to technology, page builders will evolve. And that's exactly what's going to happen. And I think this is where, when you're looking at like Elementor, for example, where they're looking at going to the cloud-based thing, I think they are looking at the WordPress platform as a whole and thinking, well, Gutenberg is something that's going to be at some point pushed even harder onto people. So do we want to be solely reliant upon that platform and the volatility that could potentially come with it? And I think, like I say, this is why they're looking at the cloud-based version, even though it's going to still be built around Elementor and WordPress. You can't help but think that with the investment they've got and investment they might want to raise again in maybe like a round 2 or round 3, whatever it would be, of funding, they might be looking and thinking, well, okay, if the cloud platform where we use WordPress is successful, maybe the next thing to take a look at will be something where it doesn't rely upon WordPress. It becomes a standalone self-contained platform like Webflow, like the Brizzy Cloud platform, which doesn't rely on WordPress. Is that a direction they're going to go in the next few years? It would be logical if they did see it as this cloud platform thing is like the next step for them, where they can get a smaller, more closed ecosystem for them, where updates and things like that becomes less volatile. So I would say probably the next 5 years we're going to see some big changes, and I would honestly say that I wouldn't be surprised if Elementor also, when the cloud gets up and running, they have something that's going to be their own platform that is not WordPress powered. That's what I kind of think anyway. Okay, Pinegrow is really interesting. I agree, it is quite a cool looking thing. I could cause you to build a website regardless of the platform, a steep learning curve. The thing that I like about Pinegrow, and if you haven't seen Pinegrow, it's like it's a piece of software you install on your computer as opposed to being an online platform, and there's a couple of different iterations of it. But one of the things that really piqued my interest with Pinegrow is that you can use it to create sites and templates and things like you're kind of used to right now, but you can then output that as a WordPress theme. So you could use it to design your own WordPress themes. You can integrate it with dynamic content and will automatically create the ACF linking, if I'm right on what it does with that. So you could use it to create some quite cool, more advanced themes for WordPress, and then you could offload those to a WordPress site and have all the benefits of using WordPress with all the benefits of having something that allows you to create in a partially visual way your websites. So if you haven't looked at Pinegrow, have a little look at it and see what you kind of think. Have a look at some of the videos that are out there for it from the actual company themselves, because there are some really exciting looking features included in Pinegrow. So time permitting, I do want to take a little look at it this year, maybe grab a subscription on it and see how I get on with it. Especially now I'm kind of getting more accustomed to working inside Oxygen. I want to take a look at Webflow. They're kind of like synergistic in how they all work. There's definitely overlaps in the knowledge you need to be able to work inside those various different tools like that. So pretty cool. I'm really interested to take a look at those in a little bit more detail. Okay. Has anyone bought Brindle Booking? I bought it, I haven't tried it out yet, but I probably will create some kind of video on that in the future. And if you're not sure what Brindle Booking is, it's a little plugin which is on AppSumo at the moment. I think there's a link on the Facebook group for it. It's like $9 for a lifetime license for one site, but if you stack 3 of those, you get unlimited licenses for unlimited sites for $27, and it's basically like an online booking plugin. It's still early stages. You're kind of getting on board this quite early in the lifespan of it, but it looked quite interesting, and I think again it's one of those things. It's quite useful when the price is that low to have that in your back pocket, let it mature for a year, 18 months, and then when you come across a project that requires some kind of online booking, it'll take payments and things like that as well, and link it up to a calendar, and it's all fully manageable from the dashboard of WordPress. It's handy to have it there. So, I mean, I've invested in a few things like that I'm waiting for them to mature so they become something that I think is going to be useful. But take a look at Brindle Booking. It actually looks quite a cool, well-featured plugin, and the developer seems quite open to and excited about pushing that platform further forward as the year progresses. So have a little look. But no, Steve, I haven't tried it yet, but it is something that's on the cards. Hopefully next week I'll get a chance to give it take it for a little spin maybe and see how it all works. Okay. Robert Simmons, any takes on Webflow? We've started pushing clients towards it just to get rid of the maintenance. I think you kind of answered one of my main points when it comes to using a platform like Webflow. You know, one of the things that people say, and I think Dave Foy addressed this when we had our live chat and also in the live stream that he did with regards to him moving his new website over to Webflow, is that when you kind of factor in how much an actual WordPress website costs to build, to host and maintain, then take a look at the cost of something like Webflow, which people say, well, that's expensive every single month. Weigh the two up and you might find that something like Webflow isn't as expensive as you think, and just getting rid of that ongoing maintenance hassle. You know, you don't have to worry about updates, you don't have to worry about security, you don't have to worry about hosting, you don't have to worry about plugins, all those kind of things. Everything is taken care of inside that platform for you. So you are paying for peace of mind, you're paying for a lot less stress and hassle, and you pass the cost on to your client anyway, and you just cream a little bit off the top. And one of the things that's nice about Webflow is that you can bill your client through Webflow. And you can bill them, let's just say it costs $10, £10 a month for the website. Well, you could bill them 20 and then you'll cream £10 off or $10 off that, and you don't have to do anything. It's all basically just running in the background and does away with that hassle and that stress of dealing with maintaining and updates and all those kinds of things. So, Robert, I would say if you've got access to that and you're comfortable using it, it's definitely something that's a viable option. Sorry. A Q&A before 7 p.m. I think that's a first. No alcohol, see? That's where it is. Time goes slower when you're not drinking. Okay. What else we have? David was, what is that little gizmo that you just used for the Q&A bumper? Do you mean the actual animation itself, or do you mean what did I press down there? Because if you mean what did I press down there, it's a Stream Deck. And if you're asking what did I use to create the bumper, it's done in, I think that was done in Final Cut Pro. Just a pre-designed thing. You just adjust the colors and the text and the logos and stuff like that. But Stream Deck was used to switch it on, which I could do things like this as well. It's awesome. Just means that I look like I know what I'm doing, which I don't. Okay. What else do we have? Yeah, sorry, this is true. He does crack the whip. Paul tries to keep these episodes to 1 hour, but always tends to go past 2 hours. Yeah, you're right. But it's part of the fun. It's a Thursday night. We get to have a chat. We get to have a conversation. We get to talk all techie, geeky stuff. And that's fun. Just good fun. Michael, you are right. It is the Elgato Stream Deck. And they are awesome. I've got one upstairs. I've got one downstairs. And I've got an A10 Mini over there that allows me to do other things. Speaking of which, next week, I know I've been asked quite a few times about what equipment do I use, how do I set things up, how do I create the content that I create, and all those kinds of things. I will be doing a video probably next week, a little bit behind the scenes kind of thing, which will show, I'll take you through all the different things that I use to create the different things, the different videos, the content, all those kinds of things. So if you're interested in seeing behind the scenes, keep an eye out for that. That should be there next week. Okay. Let's have a look. Clint, excuse me. What are your thoughts about Elementor WordPress versus a hosted solution like Unbounce? I've never used Unbounce, so I can't talk about that specifically. But I think my point kind of carries over from a platform like Webflow, like we've talked about with Brizzy Cloud and stuff like that. I think if you don't want to have to deal with all of the updates and the maintenance and those kinds of things that WordPress carries with it, I think a platform like that, a self-contained platform as it were, is a good option. If you can build a business around that, which there's no reason why you can't. I mean, you've only got to look at Shopify and those kinds of things. There are tons of businesses out there, probably thousands, if not tens or hundreds of thousands of businesses out there, making a bloody good living off using a platform like that. What we need to remember is that while we know how to get around servers and deal with SSL certificates and managing hosting and VPNs and all those kinds of things, as well as WordPress and themes and dynamic content and all that kind of stuff, our clients don't. And, you know, newer users don't. They just want something that works. We are the ones that end up dealing with all the crap that goes alongside something like WordPress and the maintenance and the updates. So if you don't want to go down the route of that and you still want to make money, and you still want to make money as a design or web designer, or whatever you want to kind of brand yourself as, I see absolutely nothing wrong with hosted services like Webflow, like Shopify, like Unbounce. I think they're a viable platform that means that you might sacrifice some kinds of maintenance plans, but as we've talked about in the past, I think it's a little unfair that because we chose to use WordPress and the client didn't, that we have to keep billing them for maintenance and care plans and updates and licenses and all those kinds of things that go with it. They didn't ask for that. They just wanted a website that did a specific kind of job. We are the ones that gave them that solution. So I think things like hosted solutions can be absolutely perfect for the right situations. And again, kind of brings it right back around to what we've been talking about tonight, which is look at the alternatives out there and find the right one for the client. Got a client that doesn't want maintenance, give them a fully managed solution that you just bill them every month or every year, and you haven't got to worry about anything else that goes with it. That then becomes a great business model for you. If you're happy with dealing with maintenance and people want flexibility to add extra things on, then a platform like WordPress could be the perfect option. They might start now and go, well, I want a website, but in 6 months' time, I want to have e-commerce. And then I'd like to have a community built around it. Well, better to have one platform like WordPress that is modular and allows for that expansion than having something like Webflow for the website, a separate service then for like Shopify, for example, for dealing with shopping side of things, and then another thing for dealing with like an online forum kind of situation. That becomes a pain then, because it's 3 separate platforms. That's a pain for the client to have to hop back and forth to all those different solutions. So again, right tools for the right job, for the right solution, for the right client. Those are the things that I think are more important than anything else right now. Okay. Have I ever built applications for clients? What do you mean by applications? Are you talking about like apps on your phone? If that's the case, no, I've never done that. I've never had an interest in doing that. I think that's something that is more of a specialist job. You know, I would rather go to some company that specializes in building applications than a web design company that toys with applications. So for me, no, I've never done it. And I've never really had much call for that side of things. I've been asked a couple of times, but I've always turned those kind of jobs down because the financial investment to get a good app can be tens, if not hundreds of thousands. Whereas using, you know, some of the tools that are out there to create your own mobile apps, I kind of think they're going to be fairly limited in what you can do. So, no, it's something I've stayed away from. I've got no skills, no expertise, and no real knowledge in that. So, if that's the case for me, I say thanks, but no thanks, and just move on to the next thing. Right, what else do we have? Steve Pro, no, I haven't tried Brindle Booking just yet. I know I'm probably way behind the conversation that's going on here. Speaking of affiliate links, Carl, stop posting my affiliate links in there. Right. Joe, never thought about using WordPress alternatives like Drupal, and why not apart from the learning curve? I can't say that I've looked at Drupal in the past, and I've looked at other things, and I've used other platforms plenty, going back too many years to mention. But I never thought that Drupal had the best learning curve. I didn't think it had that great a sort of community support network kind of thing when I looked at it. And I kind of think, well, I got into WordPress. That was the thing that I kind of learned. That was the thing I invested time and effort into with regards to my business at that time before I became freelancing. So I never really kind of went over and took a look at that. And I didn't think it was ever really that big a competitor to WordPress in the kinds of site that I was creating. So I just didn't have the time at that time to be able to learn it. Now, because I focus more on YouTube and creating content like we're sort of doing on the live streams and things like that, it gives me more opportunity to be able to test out other platforms. Drupal isn't one that I've ever really sort of been that interested in. I would like to take a look at some of the other platforms that are out there that are maybe not that sort of reliance like we have with a WordPress kind of ecosystem. So, and I believe Drupal is similar to that. So you're going to have plugins and themes and designs and all those kinds of things. So, but that's talking from a not a lot of knowledge. Ooh, we've got 2 thumbs down tonight. Yes, tonight's a good night. I do think it's because I'm not drinking. Okay. Let's have a little look what else we have on here tonight. So what we're going to do is we're going to give it about another 10 minutes and we're going to call it a night tonight. So we can finish at a reasonable time. But hopefully this is the kind of topic that has opened your eyes maybe to some different ideas, maybe to take a look at some other tools that are out there. As always, I would love it if you let me know in the comments, in the chat, over on the Facebook group, anywhere you can you want to get in touch and leave that information. What kinds of things you'd like to see me cover, different tools, different platforms. We're taking a look at Oxygen now, which is one of the probably most requested through the last 3 or 4 months, if not longer. So that's already being covered and catered for. So what else would you kind of like to take a look at? Outside the WordPress ecosystem, is Webflow something you're interested in? Is Editor X something you're interested in? There's tons of options out there. Let me know what kinds of things you would like, because I'd like to know. Stratos tutorials, what do we have here? I've been approached 4 times for a paid review. They all offered me money. I asked all of them if I can be honest, but at the end I made the review without accepting the money. Honesty above all. I get asked to do reviews absolutely tons of times. I probably get some days I get like 10 emails saying like, can we have a review and we'll set you up as an affiliate and we'll pay you money and blah, 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 blah. And I don't believe anyway, so quote me if I'm wrong on this one, but I've never really done, at least in the last sort of 4 years anyway. I think when I first started the channel I might have done a couple of reviews, but they were primarily, they were actually all off my own back. But I would never do a review if someone gives me money, because I think you are compromised straight away by accepting money for a review. And like I said, that's the reason why I will only ever show you how to use a particular tool, plugin, theme, whatever it is, if it's a paid for piece of content. And I will start the video telling you it's paid for. There'll be a link to say it's paid for. And I will start the video by saying that I will give you no opinion. I will not tell you if it's good or bad or anything else. I will just show you how you use it. And then you can make your own minds up if you want to spend any money on it or you think it's not for you. That way, I think that's the only way I can be objective. And the other thing I will not do is submit my videos for a review. If a customer, if a potential sponsor says, can we see the video before it goes live? The only way they will get to see that is if they understand that I will not make changes to it unless there's something factually incorrect included in that content. And pretty much 99% of the people I ever work with have understood that point. Like I say, I will not edit or amend any kind of content unless there's a factual error included in it. But I pretty much don't let anybody see the content before it goes out on the channel. Anyway, it's my content in my style, and that's all you're going to get. If you don't like that, then I'm probably not the person to work with. So, pretty simple, really. Exactly, Andrew. At the end of the day, me doing this costs me money. There's a simple fact. It costs me money. It costs me money for the setup to be able to stream it. It costs me money for the laptop to stream it. It costs me money for all the different things. Plus, yes, I'm in an enviable position that I can contact different companies and say, look, this is me, this is the channel that I've got. Can I have a copy of your software with what's called an NFR license, which is not for resale? And so far, I've never been refused. But a good 50% of the time, I'll go and buy it myself. And I'll test it myself. I mean, AppSumo, I bought all the things on there. I think I refunded maybe 3 out of probably 40 or 50 purchases on there. And I buy them for me, first of all. And if I find that there's something interesting, I think there'll be some value on the channel, I'll put that out there. And they will be links back to the AppSumo account. And I will get a small percentage if you use my link and you purchase through it. But I've only created content for that because I've bought it in the first place. And I'm kind of excited about it. And I think this would be something that I think people would actually find useful. I've also posted things up on there and said, would you be interested in this? And people come back and go, nope. I would rather stick with X, Y, and Z, and I have no interest. And that way, I just don't bother, because I think, well, there's not enough interest in it. What's the point of you making content with the sole aim to try to make you think, oh, this is quite cool, I'll go and buy it. So, but like I say, I will be totally honest. I will always say whether there'll always be a sponsored link. It'll say there's sponsored links in the description, I believe. And if anyone pays me for sponsorship, I'm clear and open and honest about it. But I won't lie about it, and I certainly won't hide the fact that I make money off it. This is becoming my main business, and for it to become a sustainable business, you have to make money. You have to put food on the table and all those kinds of things. So I've got no shame in that kind of thing. I know there's a lot of people that have had stick in the past. It's not so much these days. I don't think YouTube has that stigma as much as it did maybe 3 or 4 years ago. That people would be really upset if someone got to the point where they could actually command some money for sponsored content. And I just think that's ridiculous. You know, at the end of the day, you can't do this forevermore for nothing. You know, you've got to make money. Simple as that. There's no two ways about it. So you'll always know, I'm not going to lie about it. You know, there are affiliate links. I get a kickback if you use them. If you don't use them, you don't feel that's the right for you, just go and take a look yourself. No problem at all. Anyone going to watch Kyle's From the Admin Bar webinar next Thursday about oxygen? Steve, I'm sorry, but you can't. If you watch this channel, you can't go and watch another channel. I'll just have to kick you out the Facebook group now, and I'm sorry, you're going to be banned from... Carl, please ban Steve. He's not allowed in the chat section on these live streams anymore. To answer your question, I probably will. Yeah, Kyle's a very, very nice guy, and I know he's really excited about what you can do with oxygen. And if I'm honest, that's the thing that gave me a kick at the butt to go back and take a look at it probably about 2 weeks ago when he got excited about it. I had a bit of a conversation back and forth a little bit, and I know that he's loving what you can do with it and put together a couple of comparative sites. And I kind of think he's definitely going to start using oxygen for various different projects moving forward. So I probably will jump in there and take a look at it because I like the way that Kyle works. He's a very nice guy, and I think he's got a very solid brand and focus when it comes to the admin bar. So again, as always, if you haven't already joined the admin bar, just go to Facebook after this live stream, type in the admin bar and join into the... It's a great Facebook group with a very similar supportive kind of feeling and vibe as we've got in the WP crew, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Okay, thank you, Carl. Couldn't resist. You're fired. Aaron, your channel's always come across as genuine and forthright. Good, I'm glad to hear that. I mean, at the end of the day, that is vitally important, because if I lose any credibility with people just trying to take the quick dollar, I shoot myself in the foot, and I've wasted the last probably 4 or 5 years of my life building up, you know, nearly 600 videos of content for just a moment of stupidity. So thank you very much, Aaron. I'm glad to hear that is the case. What else we have? Are you on commission, Carl? No, he's not. He doesn't get a cut. Doesn't work hard enough, if I'm honest. He's emotionally invested in WPTuts. That's what I like to hear. Good man. Okay, anyone use Cadence theme recently? Can't decide between this or WordPress for our new business site. I would say, Liam, check out Bloxy as well. I did a video on it yesterday. It was for a blog, but it'll show you, there's a big chunk in there, and I think I've already put in timestamps if you don't want to look at the more basic stuff. Have a look at the sections on using the customizer and also set it up like the home page, the blog page, and bits and pieces like that, because they focus heavily on Bloxy. And this is the free version, not the pro version. Check that out, because I think you might be pleasantly surprised at how good that theme is. But other than that, I don't see the hype. We talked about this earlier on. I don't see the hype about Cadence. I don't think it does anything that's that exceptional compared to what a lot of other themes do out there. Excuse me. So, yeah, check out Bloxy. Have a little look at that and see what you think. And no, I'm not sponsored at all. There's no affiliate links. There's nothing in the description below. I just like the theme. It's pretty cool. Okay, so a little look. Can we not have the fighting, please, now? Volker and Carl, please. Just calm yourselves now. You're getting a little bit violent in the comment section. Okay, so what do we have? Andreas. I would love if page builders became cross-platform software like the half-functioning element of a Drupal or PrestaShop. No, that's an interesting kind of concept. I don't know. I don't know if I'd like that idea, because I think, would we be taken away from development time on a particular platform to focus on another platform, or are you going to get to the point where you've got to have so many people working, you're going to split it into 2 separate kind of departments, or 3 or 4, whatever it is, and then you're going to end up with basically substandard products? I don't know. It could be interesting, but I don't know how viable it would be for that to work. But an interesting idea. Who knows? Could be quite cool. Okay. Rich, any tips on simplifying helping clients to set up business accounts for their peripheral stuff like analytics, ads, Gmail, Facebook, etc.? Oh, there's a tough one. Any tips on that? Well, first of all, I would say that if you are looking to do it yourself, make sure that you know what the hell you're doing and you can have milestone achievements. So for example, if we're talking about like Facebook ads, you need to liaise with the client and have a good solid understanding of what they're trying to achieve, what their expectations are, and you would need to know how realistic their expectations are and then bring them back down to earth if their expectations are way off base. And then you need to be able to have provable statistics to say that what you're being paid for is actually returning on their investment. The only thing I would say is if you're building a website and you're trying to do those kinds of things, I would be careful that you're not trying to sort of juggle too many balls at the same time and you don't become particularly strong in any one of them. Other than that, I would say just make sure you've got good, strong contract in place for any or all of those different things, and you have deliverables included to say what it is you're going to be providing for them for that money that they'll be paying you for. Hope that kind of helps a little bit. Okay. So have a little look. So just bear with me because there's so many different kind of conversations going on inside the chat. It's hard to sort of see where the different things are going on. Right. I'm going to ask this question. What do you think of the OS DXP framework for WordPress as a future as an enterprise solution? I'm honest, I have never actually heard of the OS DXP framework. I'm assuming, and I could be probably talking complete rubbish here, is this a sort of theming framework which allows you to build your own themes out with it using a sort of a core infrastructure in the same way that you've got like Bootstrap, for example, for CSS? This is a kind of similar sort of thing for WordPress. If so, I don't have any experience of it to be able to say what I think of it. So drop a link in the comment section below to some more information about that, because I'd like to take a little look at it. I know I will absolutely forget all about this after the live stream finishes. I've had some food and stuff. So let me know what that is. Drop a couple of links in there, maybe some information about it, and I'll check that out. And I'll have a little look at it, Michael, if you don't mind. That'd be quite cool. Okay. Carl, you'd like to see a behind the scenes with the WPTuts episode. It's probably going to be quite underwhelming, if I'm honest. It probably looks a lot better on camera than it does when you're stuck in a little room that's probably, I don't know, 10 foot square, this particular one. But yeah, I will do that. I will be putting something together, and you'll see why, hopefully next week. Okay, we're going to have 2 more questions, and we're going to call that at the end of the night. Oh, I just put the wrong one up. But anyway, do you think page builders like Elementor add too much extra bloat compared to using something like Generate, Cadence, Gutenberg blocks? Yes, they probably do. Unless, of course, where you're using something like Gutenberg blocks, that you have several different block sets as well as some plugins and things added in there, then you could find that the differences are negligible, basically because of that you're just putting too many things in it to make it more usable. I do think, though, that this is how Gutenberg is definitely going. It seems to be that Gutenberg is deficient in many, many areas, especially when it comes to the design side of things. So when you look at something like Cadence blocks and some of the other things, I think like Generate blocks, they add not just the blocks in there, which could be useful to get started with, but they open up a lot more styling and function options and layout options, like sections and columns and stuff like that. So you can get a lot more creative in your design and get a little bit closer to what you'd have in a tool like a page builder. But when you sort of start to put all these things on top of each other and build up more and more things, then you are going to negate some of the benefits you have with using a page builder and the benefits of the ease of use that you have with using a page builder over trying to use Gutenberg and blocks and Cadence blocks or Gutenberg blocks, Generate blocks and things like that to give you the functionality you need to do things like styling text and your page layouts and all those kinds of advanced things. So I think it's a double-edged sword. Let's just say it like that. Spenny, I'm not that up on Webflow, so I'm not probably the best person to answer your question, but Webflow is not really geared right now to being a big e-commerce site. I believe you can use some e-commerce options in there. Dynamic content, you don't really have dynamic content like you're thinking you do with something like ACF, but you can create custom fields in there, and you can create custom back-end sections that link into those fields, so you get a sort of semi-ACF dynamic kind of setup, which you can then make available to the client if you've got someone you're paying this for. You can limit and restrict the access that they have to various different features, including what they can put content into. It's kind of like, if you consider Webflow to be the let's build a static website, when you want to give sort of more control to that side of things, so you want people to have like a blog kind of facility or the ability to add their own pages and stuff like that, then you tag in the CMS module, as it were, and that has extra features included in it that gives the ability to have very CMS-like features. You'll fill in a form, and then the page will dynamically be created and pull the data from those form entries. So you just have to think slightly differently about how you use something like Webflow, but you can absolutely do a lot of what you could do with a tool like Elementor and WordPress, but then there's other things you can't do with it. So have a little look. Like I say, have a look. You can create an account on Webflow for absolutely no money whatsoever. You can have, I think, like 2 websites on there that you're building and playing about with. You can even launch those websites with minimal resources, but you can't have a custom domain associated with it. So it will give you enough to be able to dabble, watch a couple of videos, see what you think of it, have a little play about, and get a feel for it. It's quite useful. That's what I've done anyway. So I hope that's at least answered that question a little bit. Okay, let's do one more question, and then we're gonna call it a night. Right, let's have this one. Paul, is there anything in WooCommerce side you think is missing in the ecosystem, in particular visual front-end stuff? WooCommerce as a platform is pretty good. It gives you the ability to get an e-commerce site up online very quickly with spending no money whatsoever. You can use free themes, free plugins, WordPress, all those kinds of things. And on that front, I think it's quite good. What very quickly reduces how good WooCommerce is when you get a client or you get a project that really requires more advanced functionality, then you start to have to plug those holes with more plugins. So like if you want delivery notes and PDF invoices and things, so when you send a parcel out to a client, you want to put that in there, that's a plugin. You want to have extra options to do with products, that's another plugin. You want to do something like you might want to have wholesale prices because you have wholesale clients, or your website is just a wholesale site. You have to have a plugin for that. And this, I think, like I said, is where you have to weigh up using something like WordPress with WooCommerce and a pile of plugins, as opposed to something like a dedicated, even self-hosted platform like OpenCart, for example, or using something like Shopify or one of those kinds of like is it Big Cart or something like that, Big Shop, something like that. This is where you kind of have to weigh up the sort of the pros and cons of the price versus what you need to tag onto it to get the features you need, compared to maybe a self-hosted solution like OpenCart or a paid-for hosting solution that's a complete platform like Shopify, that kind of thing. That's what I would kind of look at when it comes to WooCommerce and the deficiencies that has. The visual front end stuff, I mean, that kind of ties into like what I was saying, like with the wholesale, with the extra product features. Shipping is a pain in the butt. I mean, you can do a lot, but you've got to start getting into equations and mathematical conditions and stuff like that. And it's like, for most users, that's like straight over the top of the head and just becomes a pain in the bum. But, you pays your money, you takes your choice, as it were. Okay. Els. Steve, better cough up an additional 70 so as to have a components tool too. Okay, no idea what that is. Okay, so I'm going to say that I want to wrap things up. I'm going to have one more question, because I think this was a good one. Can we expect more business client style videos? Yes, Graham, you absolutely can. Definitely. the Freelance Fridays, which is what it kind of became called, say a year, 18 months ago, which is about those kinds of things. And I also like doing this kind of thing on the live streams, because I think the live streams are nice because you can have a two-way conversation about your experiences, your findings, problems you may be having. So this season of live streams is going to have a focus on those kinds of things as well. So if you've got questions, you've got comments, anything to do with those kinds of things, this is a great place to do it. We have the Q&A session on any of the live streams. And like I say, if you want more like this and you want more information on business sides of things, get involved over in the Facebook group, drop a comment in the comment section on the video, whatever you kind of want, whatever method works for you best. Do those, and let's just kind of tell me what you're interested in, because at the end of the day, I'm here to hopefully give you the information that you need. You know, try to avoid the pitfalls that I might have come across, or the things that I've learned over the years doing this job for 15 plus years. You know, I'm happy to share as much information as I can, and if it's any use to you, thumbs up. Okay, well said, Paul. I have no idea what I said, but thank you very much. Oh man, there's so many questions. How'd you like questions? Okay, right. Let me just scroll through because there's so many questions I missed out on. Right, okay. Carl tells me it's 7:30, so we're going to have to call it a night. So I am going to wrap it up there. There's so many questions, and please do, if you want to continue these questions on, please hop over to the Facebook group. Like I say, the link's down in the corner right now. Get involved over there, become part of the WP crew, ask your questions, get involved in the conversation, become part of a really, really nice community of supportive people that are more than happy to help out, give you opinions, give you answers, give you help, and yeah, just become part of that. Now, before I do wrap things up, I want to say two things. First of all, thank you very much, Carl, for your help as always. So if everybody could just say thank you, Carl, for getting involved, helping me out in the chat, being an absolute solid guy. That'd be fantastic. And number two, Els is in the house tonight as well, and I want you to say a big thank you to Els because she is an absolute rock over on the Facebook group, answering so many questions that I simply, A, don't necessarily know the answers to, or B, just couldn't keep up with. So both of those guys are absolute rocks when it comes to WPTuts, and they are an integral part of the whole channel and the whole experience, alongside all you wonderful people that get involved on here, in the comment section of the videos, and also over on the WP Crew Facebook group and Twitter. So I'm going to say thank you very much for all of your involvement tonight. It's been an absolute blast as always. The next live stream will be 2 weeks' time, and I've got another lot of topics we want to cover in that, so please do bookmark that. There'll be a link on Twitter, on Facebook over the next few days, so please do get your notifications and all those kinds of things going on there. I'm going to say thank you very much one more time, and I'm going to say this is the end of the evening, so thank you very much for everybody that's joining in, and I will see you in 2 weeks, if not before.